At the Awakeners Academy, a formal examination is currently taking place. To measure the strength and status of every student, the instructor calls them one by one to pass through a special portal that leads into a chamber where a demon heart has been carefully prepared to absorb and evaluate their energy. Once the process finishes, it reveals both their current rank and their future potential for the entire academy to see. Most of the students unfortunately end up classified as weak E rankers. A small number proudly manage to reach D rank, celebrating the possibility of improving later on. Then the academy's most renowned prodigy finally steps forward. As the privileged heir to the strongest guild, the attention of everyone present instantly focuses on him. Eager to witness what he can do, he calmly enters the chamber where the demon heart is kept. In his mind, there is no doubt that he will become the academy's greatest sensation and claim the highest rank ever recorded. The moment he releases his power, the students watching outside burst into loud cheers. His result appears as an advanced D rank, along with the potential to one day climb all the way to S rank. His friends are particularly amazed, fully convinced that this arrogant guy is a once-in-a-generation prodigy. One of them even turns to mock a quiet boy named Chen, who happens to be next in line for the test. He is absolutely certain Chen is about to make a fool of himself. Yeah, famous last words. Chen, however, ignores the ridicule and calmly walks forward. Just like the others before him, he steps into the chamber, but this time the demon heart reacts very differently. Without even activating a single ability, the heart already registers a high-level D rank, leaving everyone watching completely shocked. Then, by activating the weakest skill card he once absorbed from a monster, he casually pushes his result up to C rank. And the crowd is still trying to process what just happened. But Chen is not finished yet. He replaces the card with a stronger class card, and the demon heart immediately begins to shake as if it senses something terrifying. The instant he unleashes his true power, a violent storm suddenly forms in the sky above the academy. The ranking display begins glitching wildly, showing potential for S rank. The professors stare in absolute disbelief, yet this is only the beginning. Soon the single S multiplies into triple S rank, until the system finally collapses under the overwhelming pressure. The professors, now genuinely panicking, hurry straight toward the testing chamber. When they finally reach the room, they are met with complete devastation. The demon heart has been completely scorched, drained of all life. An incident like this has never been recorded before, leaving the professors utterly confused. Meanwhile, Chen simply strolls out of the chamber as though nothing unusual has occurred. The truth is, after accidentally destroying the demon heart with his overwhelming power, he quietly consumed it. Yeah, bro really turned the test equipment into a snack. But this raises a bigger question. Who exactly is Chen, and how did he obtain such terrifying strength? This story here is really good. We put a lot of effort into this video. Leave a like so YouTube will recommend our video to more people, and subscribe to the channel. Let's reach the goal of 100,000 subscribers. Without further ado, let's get into the story. He is actually a regressor who has returned from a future where demons had already conquered the entire world. In that ruined future, he stood as the final surviving human, fighting for years until he ultimately defeated the Demon King by sacrificing his own life in a massive explosion. Then, after a brilliant flash of light, he suddenly wakes up again in the past, lying inside his dormitory room. Still dazed, he wonders if he somehow ended up in the afterlife. But when he looks through the window and notices people gathered outside, something starts to click. After a short moment of confusion, the truth becomes clear to him. His wish has come true, and he has been sent back 10 years into the past to his university days. At that exact moment, a strange holographic screen appears before him, announcing that the integration of the power of gluttony has been completed. While staring outside the window, he realizes he now has 3 years left before the first demon lord Wrath descends upon the world. He remembers perfectly well that this demon lord was the beginning of everything. Wrath was the one who opened the gates of hell, allowing the remaining demon lords to invade the human realm one after another. Determined to change the future, Chen decides he must find the exact location where Wrath will appear and eliminate him before those gates ever open. Shaking himself out of his thoughts, Chen turns his attention to the interface floating beside him, which now clearly displays his attributes. He begins wondering if this is some kind of system or game-like menu because he never encountered anything like this in his previous life. Back then, he had relied solely on his awakened ability, a rare power possessed by only 1 out of every 10,000 people. The National Awakener University exists specifically to recruit individuals who carry this kind of potential. Unfortunately, during his previous time here, Chen completely failed to awaken any power. By that point, he had already grown used to constant bullying, which explains why he woke up in the infirmary like this. Just then, another panel pops up and presents him with a lightning-type assassin card, which he instantly recognizes as the class he possessed in his previous life. Surprised, he begins wondering if he has awakened earlier than before this time. He immediately decides to test it, but before he can finish switching classes, his roommate and close friend Ma Long suddenly walks in. Ma Long is an E-ranked flower chanter. The poor guy even has a bandage on his cheek, clearly having had a rough day. He came to check on Chen's condition. Thankfully, Ma Long shows no reaction to the floating panels, confirming that Chen is the only one who can see them. His friend then starts examining him closely after noticing that all of Chen's injuries have already healed, confused about how someone who has not even awakened could recover faster than him, even though he himself is already awakened. Chen recalls Ma Long from his previous life. This same roommate had managed to awaken during their time at the university, yet he ultimately became one of the weakest awakeners and met a tragic end on the third day after Wrath's descent. Chen quietly smiles as he looks at his old friend once again. Ma Long then tells him that their ranking assessment will take place the following day, and that both of them need to prepare for it. Feeling sorry for him, Ma Long assumes our protagonist still has not awakened, yet he reminds him that this evaluation is crucial if he hopes to graduate. As they make their way through the bustling streets, Chen casually remarks that it has been such a long time since he has seen so many people gathered around, which ends up startling his roommate badly. Chen continues to reflect that if he remains passive in this life, everyone will end up facing the same tragic future once again. Because of this, he resolves to train relentlessly and increase his strength as quickly as possible. However, another issue arises. At this point in time, the only method for an awakener to gain experience and improve is by defeating monsters within demon layers. These zones are entirely dominated by the major guilds, meaning that weak individuals or outsiders like him have almost no opportunity to level up. He opens his status panel and examines his attributes, trying to determine how he compares to other awakeners and even to the monsters themselves. The authorities have categorized awakeners into ranks starting from E and progressing up to S class. Chen is aware that the majority of students at the university remain stuck at E rank, with only a small number barely managing to reach D rank. He glances at his friend and quietly teases him in his mind, at least certain that he stands above him in rank. At that moment, a ball suddenly comes flying in and hits the poor nerd directly, knocking off his glasses and shattering them on impact. It turns out they have once again crossed paths with the bully Gongcheng and his followers, the same group that had beaten them up just the previous day. Gongcheng smirks and questions the nerd about why he failed to bring him crates of drinks despite knowing he would be there. Ma Long quickly apologizes and prepares to go purchase the drinks using his own money, but Chen intervenes and stops him, stating that the one who should be apologizing is actually Gongcheng. The moment he sees the bully again, Chen is dragged back into the painful memories of his past. Back then, they used to try to drown him in a sink filled with water. Instead of feeling any remorse, they claimed they were simply forcing him to awaken. On that day, they only stopped after Chen finally lost consciousness. At the time, Ma Long had rushed over to check on him, but as soon as Gongcheng heard Chen speak, he returned just to hurt him even more. Now back in the present, Chen has already decided to teach these bullies a proper lesson. After hearing Chen speak out, Gongcheng and his lackey begin approaching again, clearly prepared to silence him for good. Our protagonist looks directly at Gongcheng, fully aware that he only targets the weak because his older brother holds power as the student council president. As the bully steps closer, nearby students begin gathering, already feeling sorry for Chen as they expect him to be beaten again. When Gongcheng reaches him, he asks once more what Chen had said, and Chen calmly repeats that he should stop bothering them from now on. Hearing this, Gongcheng loses his patience and immediately throws a punch at him. This time, however, Chen lifts his arm and blocks the strike effortlessly, even forcing the bully backward. Everyone watching is left stunned because as far as they know, Chen has not even awakened yet. And yet he just stopped a powerful attack as if it were nothing. Gongcheng becomes even more enraged and charges in again, while Chen calmly prepares himself and switches to his electric assassin class. Ma Long stands frozen in shock as Gongcheng activates his indestructible demon armor and rushes forward with a heavy blow. Before he can even close the distance, Chen moves first and sends him flying with a punch infused with lightning. The surrounding crowd can hardly believe what they are seeing as the so-called weakling Chen knocks the school bully away with a single strike. Even after taking such a beating, Gongcheng refuses to back down and shouts at his subordinates to step in and avenge him. Meanwhile, his followers are already shaken after witnessing what Chen just did. Gongcheng forces himself back up and charges toward our protagonist once again, but once more he is struck down and thrown aside without any chance to retaliate. Seeing their supposed leader being crushed like this, the lackeys quickly realize they stand no chance and immediately flee. The poor nerd who witnesses everything is left completely stunned, unable to close his mouth as he struggles to accept that his roommate, who was beaten just yesterday, has suddenly become this powerful. Chen, on the other hand, realizes that just like in his previous life, he can switch into his assassin form whenever he wishes. Even at level 1, his attributes are enough to deal with low-level awakeners, meaning his current rank should be at least D. However, there is still one thing he has yet to confirm. Even after defeating someone, the system has not granted him any level increase. Thinking about this, Chen almost moves to finish the bully off completely while everyone around watches in panic. At the very last moment, the vice president of the student council, Ling Yu, steps in and tells Chen to stop. She reminds him that even if Gongcheng was in the wrong, this level of punishment is already more than enough. She assures him that the bully will not dare to trouble him again. Because of that, our protagonist finally decides to let him go. As he steps back, Chen begins to wonder why the student council is so eager to intervene and protect someone like Gongchang. Even though he had only been pretending and never truly intended to kill him, he understands that people like those bullies must be disciplined properly. Otherwise, they will continue preying on anyone weaker than themselves over and over again. Chen then leaves with his roommate while the bullies' followers watch from afar, hiding as they whisper among themselves that they should never even consider provoking Chen again. That evening, as Ma Long tries to explain to their other roommates that Chen has awakened as an incredibly powerful lightning assassin, none of them believe him. Ma Long keeps insisting on how their once fragile friend managed to defeat Gongchang so decisively. However, Shang Zuo, an E-ranked nucleus mage, treats the whole story as a joke. Shang Zuo questions that if Chen has truly become so formidable, then why is he still training like this, arguing that a real awakener would no longer need such basic physical exercises. Hearing that their gamer roommate Shan Yu remarks that from what he is hearing, it sounds like Ma Long must have suffered a serious blow to the head. Shang Zuo continues, claiming that the four of them were placed in this dorm because they are the weakest at the bottom, and no matter what they do, that reality will not change. He goes on to say that he himself is the strongest among them, while Ma Long and Yu are merely support chanters. He shows off a bit while assuring himself that there is no way Chen could have become a lightning assassin. Feeling more confident than ever, he even hopes that he might rank up during the final test before graduation the next day. Meanwhile, the student council president Gong Ting finishes a training session in an E-ranked demon lair and walks out alongside Ling Yu. He notices his younger brother still standing there and asks what he is doing. Gong complains that as long as the person who defeated him remains around, he cannot even rest peacefully. Gong keeps pressuring his brother, trying to persuade him to take revenge on his behalf. Gong Ting calmly reassures him that he will take care of the trouble he has caused. Later, while they are at the dining table, the vice president asks Gong Ting how he plans to resolve the situation, and he in turn asks whether the boy is truly as strong as his brother claims. Ling Yu points out that he already knows there are fewer than 10 D-ranked students in the entire academy, and he has already recruited all of them into his club. She further explains that others do not even have access to demon lairs like he does, meaning no ordinary student should be capable of standing against him. Elsewhere, Chen continues running relentlessly while being soaked by the rain. He sets a goal of completing 20 full kilometers while carrying a bag weighing 100 kilograms, nearly twice his own body weight. He understands that fundamental training is crucial to raising the upper limits of an awakener's strength, since a stronger body is necessary to handle greater power. As he runs, he recalls how his only family member, his sister, was killed when the Demon King Wrath descended upon the human world. That demon lord slaughtered countless people in an instant, and his sister died right before his eyes. From that moment, he set defeating this demon king as his primary objective, since that event marked the beginning of all the devastation. Chen keeps thinking that if the demon lord is already growing stronger even with 3 years remaining before his arrival, then he must surpass that growth if he wants any chance of victory. At that moment, his sister Yoon calls him. Hearing her voice again after such a long time leaves him completely silent for a brief moment. His sister explains that she could not call earlier because she was busy with a competition, and she adds that their rent problem might be resolved if she manages to win a prize. As she continues speaking, Chen listens quietly with a faint smile, feeling a firm determination to protect her and give her the life she deserves this time. After the call ends, he returns to his training and completes 3 more laps around the university. Once he finishes, he heads straight to take a shower. He feels that he is gradually adapting to this younger body, which holds great potential for growth. He sits down and begins thinking about the demon layers, which are only accessible to the wealthy. To become stronger, he knows he must find a way to defeat monsters. While pondering this issue, he eventually falls asleep and finds himself drawn into the gluttony system. He arrives in a strange place and starts wondering whether this is merely some kind of unusual dream. Meanwhile, outside, Ma Long comes looking for Chen and wonders where he has suddenly gone. Within that mysterious space, Chen sees a towering structure standing before him. But before he can properly observe it, a group of E-ranked cloud warriors known as Death Hounds appear as if to welcome him. Chen immediately fears that he may have somehow entered a demon lair and quickly switches his class. He decides to deal with the monsters first and worry about everything else later, since they have appeared out of nowhere. The boy effortlessly brings down the hounds, which prove to be nothing but noise without real threat, and gathers items from their remains. He quickly advances to level 2 and smiles, thinking he may have been fortunate enough to stumble upon a demon lair. At that moment, a boss creature emerges, and Chen defeats it just as effortlessly, slicing through it as if it were insignificant, allowing him to level up once more. The experience he gains from the boss is far greater than what he received from the regular monsters of the same level he fought earlier. Right after that, the boss's body becomes marked as something that can be devoured, leaving Chen puzzled about what that implies. He remembers the gluttony ability he noticed earlier in the system interface, and reaches out his hand to try it. The devouring process finishes instantly, and the monster is transformed into a card. Chen is left astonished as he realizes he can convert defeated monsters into usable classes. He quickly recognizes that this is the same type of ability once possessed by the demon lord Lang Yu. The realization that he now holds a power comparable to that of a demon lord leaves him shaken. In this world, people are typically born with only one class, with a few rare individuals possessing 2, yet Chen can now hold as many classes as he desires. He wonders what he did to obtain such an overwhelming ability and what the towering demonic structure before him truly is. As these questions flood his thoughts, a powerful presence emerges, and a demon appears wielding two S-ranked blades. The demon is clearly of S rank, meaning Chen has virtually no chance of defeating it. Chen understands he is severely outmatched, yet he summons a lightning blade and prepares to fight, taking a gamble to survive. Another strange detail is that for some reason the demon standing before him even knows his name. As time goes on, the demon exchanges blows with Chen. Although it is obvious that the creature is merely playing with him, it deliberately avoids striking vital points and continues knocking him down repeatedly. After pushing Chen to his limits, the demon finally speaks and offers him a choice to remain there and guard the demonic tower alongside it if he wishes to live. When Chen still refuses, the demon slashes fiercely at his arm. It threatens to end his life and explains that it has been holding back all this time only because Chen is the sole person capable of reaching this place. The demon asks him once again to reconsider, but Chen refuses again without losing hope, despite the danger he faces. He shouts as he gathers his strength, determined to end the fight, and launches another attack. All this time he has been analyzing the demon's movements and has identified a brief delay of 0.4 seconds before each strike. He knows he can use that tiny interval to carefully observe the angle of the monster's wrist and evade the attack at the last moment. Additionally, he has noticed a recovery delay of 0.2 seconds that could provide him with a small yet crucial opening while the demon is vulnerable. He intends to use that exact moment to strike at its heart. Even though he manages to execute this risky plan, he fully understands that someone of D rank like him cannot completely defeat an S rank opponent. Therefore, his primary objective is to immobilize the demon just long enough to create a chance to escape. He succeeds in doing so and immediately rushes toward the only visible light source, hoping it might lead him out of this place. However, just as he reaches it, the light suddenly disappears, and the demon informs him that it was merely an illusion and that the exit he had been seeking does not exist anywhere here. The demon further clarifies that this palace is not a demon lair at all. Even so, it expresses admiration for how quickly the boy was able to identify weaknesses in its attacks. The demon is then revealed to be the Purgatory Rakshasa and remarks that Chen is indeed the one capable of bringing hope. As Chen carefully observes the demon's form, he suddenly realizes that he has seen this exact appearance before on the demon lord Lan Yu. Our protagonist recalls the final battle where everything came to an end, the last fight he experienced before his regression. His opponent was far from an ordinary demon. During their clash, the creature first transformed into a dragon, then repeatedly shifted into other terrifying high-tier forms. It wielded blazing magma, toxic vines, and lightning even more powerful than his own. Among all those transformations, however, the one that truly stood out to him was the form identical to the demon now standing before him. A chilling realization dawns on him. Every one of those transformations must have been part of the Demon King Lan Yu's ability. Since that power now resides within him, the demon before him is simply the manifestation of the gluttony power absorbed into his body. His sharp conclusion genuinely impresses the demon. It calmly declares that he is truly worthy of inheriting the power that exists throughout this entire dimension. Chen frowns, confused by what it means when it refers to everything within the dimension. Suddenly, a golden void key appears in the demon's hand. It is the only means by which someone can enter and leave the massive tower behind it. The demon explains that the Demon King Lan Yu had consumed an immeasurable number of powerful monsters. Protecting the tower that imprisons the most unbreakable among them had always been its sacred responsibility. Yet now, it has chosen to entrust that very key to him. Rakshasa hopes that he will devour those demons, grow stronger, and take over its mission. Confused, Chen asks why a demon would ever assist a human. In response, the creature reveals that even within the demon realm, there are both virtuous beings and wicked ones. It speaks of a certain monster that wiped out its entire clan purely for amusement, like a grotesque act of entertainment. Since that day, it has waited for an opportunity to exact revenge on that vile creature. Now it believes it has found someone capable of fulfilling that desire. It tells our protagonist that someone had already recognized him as their greatest hope for vengeance. Chen immediately asks who that person might be. The demon only answers that all the truth lies within the tower, speaking in a mysterious tone like an ancient sage. With its final words, it offers all of its remaining energy to him. In return, the demon declares that he must rise to become the strongest human alive. It will not be an easy journey to devour every one of those terrifying monsters lurking within the tower. Each of those cunning beings will remain an immense challenge for him to overcome. The demon gives its final warning, stating that only someone with an insatiable hunger for strength deserves the power of the Purgatory Rakshasa. Such determination is what is required to eliminate every demon king in existence. With that, its body compresses into a blazing sphere of energy for Chen to consume. He instantly rises 8 levels and obtains 2 of Raksasa's blades. Without any hesitation, he accepts the mission, swearing to fulfill the fallen warrior's final wish. In addition to the increase in his stats, he gains the ability to absorb power from both fallen humans and demons, along with control over gravity. By morning, he slowly opens his eyes, waking up in the dorm as if it were just another ordinary day. He suddenly jolts upright when a loud voice echoes through the room. His roommates are already getting ready and tell him to hurry if he wants to make it to school on time. When he notices that his body is completely unharmed and intact, he wonders if everything he experienced was nothing more than a strange dream. However, his updated stats confirm that it was all real. Everything he witnessed carried over into reality. After jumping from level 2 to level 10 overnight, he cannot help but wonder what rank he now holds. At that moment, one of his roommates starts teasing him. He brings up how someone was shamelessly praising him the previous night, going on about how cool and incredibly powerful he supposedly became. Mama Long quietly peeks from across the room, pretending he had nothing to do with it. Regardless, his roommate challenges him to prove himself during the ranking assessment. That test will determine who is strong enough to keep the title of Dorm King. While heading to school, the self-proclaimed Dorm King proudly lectures his so-called subjects that each rank is divided into 3 different tiers. So even though they are all technically E-rank nobodies, he claims he still stands above the other bottom-tier losers as a proud mid-tier E-ranker. He struts around arrogantly, insisting that the gap between each tier is enormous. Full of confidence and excitement, the fool claims he feels so powerful that he must have advanced a tier since their last evaluation. Irritated, Mama Long tells our protagonist to stop fooling around and give it his all, at least securing a D rank today. That way the so-called Dorm King might finally stop running his mouth. Before long, the group arrives at school, where everyone is gathered nervously for the ranking ceremony. The bullies walk in as if they own the place, insulting anyone who dares to look at them the wrong way. Even the Dorm King's smug expression vanishes instantly the moment he sees them. But just like him, the bullies nearly lose their composure as well. Out of nowhere, they begin bowing respectfully to Big Brother Chen without hesitation. His roommates slowly start to realize that perhaps everything Ma Long said was not entirely made up. Our protagonist ignores them and simply focuses on his own business. Then a new challenger steps in front of him. The man who acts as the school's enforcer, Student Council Officer Jen, gives him a polite warning. Apparently, the Student Council president personally sent him to discipline the fool who dared to raise a hand against his beloved younger brother. All of Chen's friends immediately scatter and hide. They are terrified of Jen, the enforcer who handles all the unpleasant tasks for the Student Council president. His roommates cannot understand why this D-rank powerhouse is suddenly targeting Chen. He steps directly into Chen's personal space. The president's loyal subordinate boasts that his sharp sense of smell allows him to judge exactly how strong someone is. And right now, all he senses from Chen is a weak and pathetic nobody. Amused by the insult, our protagonist immediately fires back with his own sharp remark. Jen completely loses his composure. The moment he is called a dog just before a fight can break out, his master orders him to stand down to avoid causing a public disturbance. After investigating the situation, he discovered that his younger brother had been the one to start the conflict. Getting beaten was simply the result of picking a fight with someone clearly stronger than him. With that said, the president casts a piercing glare at him, sharp as blades. However, our protagonist remains completely unfazed. At that moment, a professor announces that the rank evaluation ceremony is officially starting and instructs all students present to step forward when their names are called. Hearing this, the president tells his subordinate that they are leaving. He assumes this was merely a one-time issue and that Chen will not cause any further trouble after their warning. Watching from above, a man curiously asks the vice president why she chose to attend the ranking ceremony today. He wonders if a particular newcomer has caught her attention. The woman gives a faint smile and says, "This year is going to be quite interesting." Soon after, Shang Zuo's name is called. The self-proclaimed Dorm King feels a bit anxious as he steps through the entrance. The atmosphere changes entirely once he crosses to the other side. You see, the evaluation takes place individually inside a special demon layer. Within it, a demon heart connected to various wires measures an awakener's rank and potential by absorbing their energy. When the awakener releases their strongest ability, the signal is transmitted back to Earth, where their results are displayed. The Dorm King's rank turns out to be exactly the same as before. However, the professor appears puzzled when his potential takes longer than usual to show up. Mama Long watches the fluctuating number with intense focus. After a long moment of suspense, Shang Zuo's maximum potential is revealed to be only C. The Dorm King exits looking disheartened, realizing that the progress he believed he made existed only in his imagination. His roommates try to console him, saying they are all in the same situation anyway, all stuck at E rank, with only the possibility of reaching C rank at best. A short while later, the president's subordinate walks out with a proud expression. He remains at lower D rank, but his potential reaches A. Chen's roommates begin to lose hope after seeing nearly 10 students already reach D rank. Even the professors are surprised that so many students have achieved D rank. It is uncommon for students without real combat experience to rise beyond E rank. Excited, they call the next student the president himself, who carries everyone's expectations. All eyes shift toward Gong Ting, the student who is already a guild master, as he steps onto the stage. Our protagonist remains calm, patiently waiting for the outcome. Everyone in the academy knows that Gong Ting was only lower D rank 2 years earlier. The highest recorded rank in the academy's history was mid D rank, so people begin to wonder if the president will finally surpass that record. Inside the demon lair, the demon heart slowly opens its eyes in his presence. The president is unable to unleash his full power. However, he holds a burning ambition to make a grand impact at the graduation ceremony, engraving his name in history as the best. When the professors see his potential grade glowing in gold, they blink in disbelief. their suspicions are confirmed as Gong Ting's high D rank leaves them astonished. Not only that, excitement spreads throughout the crowd at the sight of the first S-rank potential in history. The president's followers begin praising him endlessly. Even Chen's roommates feel a surge of jealousy as they witness a legend being born before their eyes. The professors quietly discuss among themselves that this news must be reported immediately to the administration. They need to handle their valuable S-rank candidate with extreme care, ensuring he does not leave the country. On top of that, he is the youngest student associated with a guild in the academy. The school's name is practically guaranteed to dominate the headlines. Observing from above, Principal Yuan Ma Long realizes that Vice President Ling Yu had already been aware of his potential. That is precisely why she came in person to watch the ceremony. However, she adds an extra twist by saying that he is not the only one she came to observe today. Aside from the spotlight-stealing president, there is another student she finds far more intriguing. Right on cue, that very student is the next one to be called onto the stage. Jen comes up with a clever idea and decides to provoke the mysterious rising figure, telling him not to end up as another useless E-rank like his roommates. He says they will become a complete joke if that happens, and it would be disgraceful for them to even show up at such a prestigious event. Ma Long supports his friend and confidently declares that he will astonish everyone. The crowd watches with intense anticipation as Chen finally steps into the demon lair. The demon heart immediately senses an overwhelming pressure as Chen approaches. Our protagonist recalls that the best way for an awakener to secure a stable future is by joining a top-tier guild. He knows that the only path toward that goal lies in performing well during the graduation combat assessment, where candidates must choose members they prefer to form a team of 10. The team that secures first place earns direct recruitment into the nation's highest-ranking Imperial Guild. So the purpose of this evaluation becomes completely obvious to everyone watching. Chen begins recruiting and presents another low-tier D-rank candidate to his leader. While proudly declaring that their group is now fully assembled, he explains that they already have all the D-rank students along with the president's brother on their side, making it impossible for them to lose first place. Chen understands that the strongest students will naturally come together to form the most powerful team, while the weakest will also cluster among themselves, creating a ruthless environment where only the fittest survive and the weak are discarded without hesitation. After some time passes, Ma Long grows anxious as the screen shows no changes, and the crowd quickly assumes that Chen is so weak that the system cannot even properly detect him. Chen then persuades Gong Ting that the remaining students are nothing but worthless, suggesting they should leave without wasting any more time. However, just as they prepare to walk away, the screen suddenly flickers and displays a high D-rank result, throwing the entire crowd into chaos as shock spreads across their faces. The president and the student council react with disbelief at this unexpected outcome. Soon after, the system detects an unusual irregularity in the results. It turns out that Chen is using the system to gauge what his level 10 base attributes in his unchanged physical state translate to during the evaluation. After seeing the D-rank result, he switches his class to the Infernal Death King, which is currently his weakest devoured class. The rank instantly shifts from high D to mid-C, astonishing the crowd while the council struggles to believe that the machine is still functioning properly. Even the researchers begin to question the situation as they wonder why the results keep fluctuating. Before long, they start to suspect that the machine might truly be malfunctioning beyond repair. At that very moment, instability appears within the demon heart, and the results begin to deviate once again in a strange way. Chen notices this and decides to switch to a stronger class, so he transforms into the Purgatory Rasha. The demon heart grows uneasy as a violent storm forms outside the demon lair, and Jen shouts in confusion. Sing treats it as a heavenly sign, believing it signals history being rewritten since their dorm has produced a divine-level monster. In the very next instant, the potential flashes to S rank, leaving both the researchers and President Gong Ting completely stunned. However, the system suddenly issues a warning that the user's potential exceeds its maximum capacity and cannot be measured within current limits. Jen's mind nearly shuts down entirely, as if hit by a fatal system error, with shock almost knocking the soul out of his body. As the system begins to collapse under the overwhelming pressure, the researchers rush forward in panic to ensure the student remains unharmed at all costs. But when they finally arrive, they freeze in disbelief as they find a shriveled remnant where the demon heart once was, completely burned out from excessive strain. It becomes evident that Chen may have frightened it far beyond its limits. Even so, he still ends up devouring it and gains the ability to see anyone's rank, while also receiving warnings about potential dangers nearby. He steps out of the demon lair and feels pleasantly surprised as everyone's rank appears before his eyes. However, he quickly notices that the president has also concealed his true potential and is actually no more than an average C rank at best. The researchers walk out awkwardly and inform everyone that the demon heart has suffered a failure due to extreme overload. As a result, they must suspend further testing for the time being. They classify Chen's results as a probable error and announce that a full report will be sent to higher authorities for review. The remaining students are instructed to return the following day for their evaluations, as a new device will be arranged for testing without further issues. On the way back, Chen's roommates begin hyping him up, treating him like an absolute legend after what he just displayed in front of everyone. Chen clearly cannot handle his jealousy and calls Chen a fraud, demanding compensation for breaking the machine and wasting the council's time like a sore loser. Just as Chen reaches his limit and prepares to strike him down on the spot, Gong Ting intervenes and immediately calls Chen out. The president warns him not to disrespect their teammate, shocking Jen instantly. Then Gongting extends his hand and invites the newly revealed powerhouse to join his team. At the same time, he confidently promises that together they will achieve the highest score in history without question. Jen begins to mentally collapse in the background, realizing that someone will have to be removed from the team to make room for Chen, and this situation will undoubtedly create tension among the brothers. According to him, joining Gongting's team practically guarantees a first-place victory without any doubt. So he starts questioning what makes Chen so special when others could not even buy their way into this lineup despite all their efforts. He forces himself to set aside his pride and reluctantly accepts Chen into the team, placing a hand on the hero's shoulder with clear hesitation. Chen immediately brushes his hand away and firmly declares that he has absolutely no intention of joining them. This reaction causes Jan to break into a cold sweat, while Gongting simply observes the entire situation in silence without showing any emotion. Jane snaps at Chain, insisting that he has no idea what he is doing since their team already holds the top position in the entire school without any rivals. Chain turns his back and walks away, saying it has nothing to do with him and calling their group too loud to tolerate even for a moment. He tells them not to bother him again, and Jen immediately begins to seethe with anger and resentment after that humiliating rejection. The entire school quickly starts spreading rumors about Chain's refusal, and most believe that he intends to claim first place entirely on his own after revealing a mid-tier C rank. The whole academy now gets a perfect spectacle as drama unfolds right before their eyes. Meanwhile, Chain's roommates fully enjoy the expressions of humiliation that spread across Jen and Tang's faces. After that merciless public rejection, the president calmly tells Jian not to worry if Chen has his own plans, maintaining his composure. At the same time, the principal, who had been observing everything, lets out a deep sigh of disappointment since the boys refused to team up as he had hoped. He wanted them to cooperate and break a new school record together. However, Ling insists that the situation is far more interesting this way. She explains that Gongting was raised in luxury, so this kind of rejection will undoubtedly register in his mind as a direct declaration of war. She reminds the principal that their president is not someone easy to deal with once his pride is wounded like this. Jen continues complaining, claiming that Chen has become arrogant just because of a test error that showed a C rank. But Gongting hints that the result might not be incorrect after all. He admits that even if the chances seem extremely slim, he cannot allow anyone to take his first-place position under any circumstances. Jen then recalls that Chen is likely just an ordinary student with no real combat experience. Meanwhile, the council members are elites who have secretly trained inside a demon lair for a very long time to reach their current level. He suggests that he should personally go and teach Chen a lesson for his insolence, but Gongting immediately cuts him off and asks whether their president really seems petty enough to act that way. Jen quickly realizes his mistake and apologizes, while Gongting cancels their karaoke plans and tells Jen to handle everything on his own without further instructions. He adds in a cold tone that whatever Jen decides to do has nothing to do with him, and Jen understands the meaning instantly without needing further explanation. About 10 minutes later, an informant approaches Jen and reports that Chen has already left the school, mentioning that he needed to go home for a while. He also adds that Chen left without even stopping to eat, making the situation even more convenient. Jen treats this as a stroke of luck and begins to feel excited at the opportunity to deal with him ruthlessly in a place where no one can interfere. As Chen walks along the street, he recalls that in his previous life, a top-tier guild once suffered a disaster while attempting to conquer a demon lair within the territory of Saint He country. Inside that lair, they encountered a monster never seen before, known as Wrath, which led to the immediate destruction of the entire elite team without any resistance. The creature then escaped into the human world and caused widespread devastation everywhere. Although that memory remains incomplete, Chen stays determined and forms a plan to locate that same demon lair in this life. To begin executing this plan, Chen needs a large sum of money, so he heads toward the Mythil Monster Exchange Center without hesitation. He recalls that this exchange center, operated under the Mythil Guild, will later become the largest trading hub for materials in the entire country in the future timeline. In this world, an Awakener's strength is judged based on the quality of the equipment and weapons they possess, and the exchange serves as a crucial marketplace for buying and selling such items. However, for Chen, this place is simply a quick and convenient way to earn some money before moving on to his larger objectives. So he walks in and presents a few fangs to the broker, who examines them carefully with clear suspicion. He asks how a student like Chen managed to obtain such items. Chen calmly explains that they dropped from a monster he defeated earlier. The broker reacts with surprise, saying he has never seen such items before, but his assistant steps in and explains that the fangs come from E-class monsters known as Beast Sangan. She recalls that records state these fangs can be used to craft an E-grade cloud-type scepter or be ground into powder for various purposes. The arrogant broker interrupts her and tosses the fang back onto the table, claiming that an E-grade item holds very little value. Anyway, he starts boasting that their exchange runs on a VIP system, dealing exclusively with awakeners who possess status and recognition in society. He claims that he only handles items of D-grade or higher, using that as an excuse to completely disregard such a low-tier E-grade item. In his thoughts, he grumbles about the recent lack of high-grade clients, and sees no advantage in dealing with someone of low standing, since it would not help his chances of promotion. He dismisses the entire situation as a hassle, and casually pushes the responsibility onto his assistant Li. As he steps aside, she politely hands Chen an envelope filled with cash, and asks if he needs any further assistance beyond this transaction. Chen checks the amount of 18,000, and decides it will cover his rent for now without much trouble. He then takes out the glowing greatsword he obtained from the Purgatory Rakshasa, instantly drawing her full attention. Although she has never encountered anything like it before, she estimates that it must be at least a B-grade item or possibly even A-grade at most. The broker returns with raised eyebrows and dismisses her assessment as nonsense, stating that A-grade items typically cost around 1 million. He argues that after working there for many years, he has never seen anything even close to an A-grade item in reality. At that moment, the shop owner arrives and calmly remarks that the item presented is neither A-grade nor B-grade. The broker praises his boss's sharp judgment, claiming he already knew that a mere student could not possibly possess something so valuable. However, the owner explains that the weapon clearly originates from the Purgatory realm and reveals that it is actually an S-grade item. Both the broker and the assistant nearly freeze in shock upon hearing this revelation, their expressions stiff with disbelief. The owner immediately grabs Chen's hands and warmly greets him as a distinguished guest with the utmost respect. He then invites Chen to follow him into the VIP room and encourages him to make any request without hesitation. Meanwhile, Chen feels satisfied realizing that the owner Qing Ji has revealed himself just as he expected. After settling into the VIP room, the guild leader asks how much Chen intends to sell the weapon for. Our protagonist immediately replies with 1 million, surprising the green-haired man. The boss tells him that the weapon could easily be worth tens of millions due to its extreme value. However, Chen explains that he only wants to use the greatsword as collateral for a 1 million loan for a single month. This leaves the man even more astonished as he realizes how sharp-minded Chen is and begins to wonder who he truly is. Chen continues, saying that he will repay the principal amount within 30 days and cover the additional interest in the following month. Before responding, the guild leader tells the girl to step outside so that the adults can discuss business matters. Once they are alone, the man states that he knows Chen is from the National Awakener University, whose senior students are about to graduate. He continues by saying that he is aware the graduation test will take place in 30 days and that the reward will be 1 million. The man then directly asks Chen if he is completely confident in passing that test. The guild leader then switches into a more analytical mindset and realizes that Chen must be in urgent need of money, or he would not have come here as a last resort. In the end, he declares that he will lend him 1.5 million immediately without any interest at all. Extending his hand forward, he smiles and says that this marks the beginning of a promising partnership. Chen is left speechless by this gesture, and the man even reassures him that not a single word from this room will be leaked. He simply asks that in return, Chen should come to this guild whenever he wishes to trade anything in the future. Chen thinks to himself that this man figured everything out so easily, yet still did not attempt to take advantage of him. He now understands why this guild leader becomes such an influential figure in the future. Our protagonist then shakes his hand, realizing that he will need powerful allies if he hopes to defeat the Demon Lord. A few moments later, the contract is finalized, and the money is transferred to his account instantly. The guild leader then asks if he needs to borrow a weapon for the upcoming tournament since he just handed his own over. Even though he does not possess any S-rank gear, he still has plenty of high-quality A-rank equipment available. Chen tells him not to worry, and simply summons the other greatsword he obtained earlier, leaving the guild members completely stunned. With that, our protagonist takes his leave, while the guild leader immediately promotes the pink-haired girl to a supervisory position for securing such a valuable client. Before departing, Chen realizes that he forgot to purchase something, and turns back toward the counter. A few hours later, he is standing in front of a bus stop. He recalls that in his past life, he struggled immensely to reach the top, and people treated him like worthless trash. He worked non-stop just to survive, and the two siblings lived almost like the homeless just to get through each month. Yun had once been accepted into her dream university, but she gave it up, convincing herself that the campus was too far away from her beloved brother. In truth, she simply did not want to become an extra financial burden on him. Returning to the present, he wonders why she has not arrived yet and begins scanning his surroundings. At that moment, a voice calls out to him, mocking him for searching near the entrance instead of the exit. She approaches while dragging along a large suitcase. She tells him that they are broke once again because the rent drained all their money. However, our protagonist just stands there in stunned silence, as it has been 7 years since he last saw her. She asks him to help carry her belongings. When he does not respond, she waves her hand in front of his face, trying to snap him back to reality. Suddenly, Chen rushes forward and pulls her into a tight embrace, catching her completely off guard. After a few awkward seconds, she uses a sneaky poking move to break free from his hold while scolding him for almost suffocating her. She comments that he has been acting strange lately and jokes about whether his crush finally rejected him, but he brushes it aside. The two begin walking together as she continues chatting endlessly about her exams. Even so, Chen feels genuinely happy just listening to her, silently vowing that he will never let anything happen to her in this life. Meanwhile, in a nearby alley, several thugs are waiting around. After confirming that their target will pass through, Jian instructs his men to stay hidden until the moment is right to ambush him together. With a twisted grin on his face, he assures himself that he will definitely make Chen pay for what he did. One of the thugs asks whether they might get into trouble if things escalate. The Cloud Assassin responds that he initially only wanted to teach the guy a lesson, but their recent encounter has made him furious. Recalling how Chen humiliated him, he orders the others to leave some of the punishment for him and swears to deliver a lesson our protagonist will never forget. Jen rambles on about how he is the greatest cloud assassin and starts drooling as he imagines the look on his target's face. Back to our protagonist. Yun points out again that he has been acting strangely and wonders if it is because of the exams. She shrugs it off, saying that someone as weak as him should not overthink such things. His sister reminds him that he was always the one telling her to keep moving forward and leave the rest to fate. Trying to cheer him up, she begins humming a motivational tune as they walk into the alley. Chen feels pleasantly surprised that she noticed his change so quickly, though he realizes she still has no idea that he has awakened his powers and become wealthy. Hearing his confident response that he is fine, she wonders if it is just his pride as a man speaking. Yun shakes her head, thinking that her brother is finally starting to grow up. Meanwhile, from a distance, one of the thugs informs Jen that there is a girl accompanying their target. This excites him even more, as the alley has no surveillance, meaning no one can interfere. However, our protagonist instantly senses their malicious intent and recognizes them as the same scum from the student council. He pulls out a pair of cheap wireless earbuds. He places them in his sister's ears and tells her to listen to a song he recently started enjoying, which surprises her since he never listens to music, but she goes along with it to understand him better. He then turns around and fixes a cold, piercing gaze on the thugs as they slowly approach. As the music plays in the background, the fight finally begins when the thugs charge forward. Chen immediately switches to his lightning class and recalls that it has been 7 years since he lost his only family, only to be reunited with her now. Filled with rage, he wonders where these fools got the nerve from and dashes forward like a flash of lightning. Our protagonist slams his leg into the first attacker, sending him flying backward while the others begin to sweat nervously. He then charges his fist and delivers rapid punches to 3 of them in succession, before finishing the 4th with a brutal knee strike. One reckless thug tries to attack, but Chen simply grabs his arm and snaps it as easily as dry noodles. The man screams in agony, only to receive a crushing punch straight to his face. Seeing his allies being thrown around so easily, Jen freezes in shock and wonders how Chen became this powerful. Chen does not stop and continues throwing heavy blows in every direction as he advances toward the cloud assassin. When he finally reaches him, Jen tries to convince himself that he is the strongest assassin and cannot possibly lose. Acting like a kind soul, our protagonist snaps him back to reality with a devastating punch that sends him flying backward. But he does not stop there, rushing forward and unleashing a series of strikes that knock several of his teeth loose. The cloud assassin rolls across the ground violently before crashing into a wall. He tries to open his eyes, only to see what feels like the devil himself staring down at him. Our protagonist looks down at Jen, now completely stripped of his dignity, and reminds him that he had already warned him to stay away. Staring straight into his eyes, he asks the foolish scum if he cannot even understand simple words. The man, beaten beyond recognition, cannot even feel his legs, with half the bones in his body broken. Realizing he picked the wrong person to mess with, he barely manages to whisper an apology. Chen silences him by grabbing his collar and pressing a dagger right against his face. The so-called top assassin can clearly read it in his eyes. There is not even the slightest trace of hesitation when it comes to killing. He carries none of the presence of an ordinary student. Jen cannot help but question what kind of hellish past could shape someone into a monster like Chen. With icy hostility, Chen tells him to remember his words well, if he wants to avoid reliving this nightmare. Next time they try anything foolish, he will not hesitate to tear them apart. That stands as his final warning. Then he adds one more threat to make it absolutely clear. If they even come close to his sister, he will wipe out everyone connected to them without mercy. After saying that, he lets the dagger fall and walks back to Yoon before the music finishes playing. By the time the song ends, his sister is overwhelmed with emotion. The sorrowful and lonely lyrics move her to tears. She cries, confused about what her brother must have gone through to change so drastically. She even wonders if her support back then had not been enough. Determined, she turns around to scold him properly, but freezes mid-sentence in the moment she notices what he is holding. The gleaming gold-plated pen she had always dreamed of owning is right in front of her. Yoon blushes deeply, filled with excitement. She can barely believe her brother bought her the latest holographic magic pen, something that costs more than their monthly rent. Her adorable reaction warms his heart. Her expression makes it obvious that she does not want to give it back, even if it would be the responsible thing to do given their financial situation. Hiding his clenched fist behind his back, Chen silently vows to protect his sister's smile this time and ensure she gets into her dream school. Back at home, she happily spends hours creating holographic drawings in the air. Her brother quietly enjoys the homemade ramen she prepared and tells her he is glad she likes the gift. Even so, she still worries about him spending so much on her when they have not even secured next month's rent. He gives her a confident smile and reveals that their rent for an entire year has already been taken care of. Her brother boasts that a small business venture he started with a friend has been doing very well lately, but Yoon narrows her eyes at him suspiciously. She clearly does not believe his convenient explanation. Even so, she chooses not to press him further. She cannot even remember the last time her brother laughed so openly like this. She gently pats his shoulder and makes a simple request. Whatever he is secretly doing, he must make sure not to push himself too hard. Meanwhile, inside a quiet aquarium, President Gong Ting shares alarming news with his cousin. The finest doctors in the city have declared that the top assassin is critically injured beyond recovery. More than half the bones in his body have been shattered beyond repair. The fact that he even fought Chen was already unexpected to the president. But the horrifying condition he ended up in is even more shocking. His cousin reacts coldly. She is only disappointed that fewer strong graduates will now be available to join his team. However, the president is just as ruthless, replying that he will actually perform better without such a useless burden holding him back. Then their uncle, who also serves as the academy's director of employment, speaks up. Gong Yuan calmly presents his findings regarding our protagonist's recent actions. His thorough investigation into the chaos during the ranking ceremony has finally been completed. There is no doubt about the outcome, and Chen's ranking truly surpasses that of the student council president. This revelation completely catches the former top student off guard. The man then offers him serious advice, explaining that his father personally arranged for a vice chairman of the alliance to evaluate his combat exam performance, so he must ensure he stands out above everyone else. In case he fails to do so, the director suggests an alternative solution. The green-haired girl, his uncle's favorite niece, could assist his team in securing first place. However, the council president refuses the offer without hesitation. He claims he did not even reveal his true strength during the assessment. Gong Ting remains fully confident in his overwhelming superiority and declares that he will dominate the entire academy on his own. Back at the academy dormitory, our protagonist cleans himself after completing his daily weighted run with a heavy backpack. His mind is completely focused on a single goal, winning the $1 million prize in the upcoming graduation exam. It is his only real chance to fulfill his agreement with Qing Ji of the Mythal Guild and establish a mutually beneficial trading relationship. With only a few weeks remaining before the exam, he lies down on his bed, not to rest, but to continue training even in his sleep. He enters his demon domain, where the massive void tower of the Demon King stands before him. Without hesitation, he climbs the long staircase leading up to its entrance. His first evaluation using the Gravehound King's class reached a respectable mid-C rank. On the other hand, the immense power of his Abyssal Fiend class completely overwhelmed the system. Even the Demon Heart itself could not properly measure its true potential. The method to evaluate his remaining classes becomes clear to him. He unlocks the Void Tower and decides to test their raw strength directly in combat. He steps inside, curious about the kind of brutal trial that awaits him within. What he sees inside makes his eyes widen in shock. He suddenly realizes he has been sent into a bizarre realm, standing atop an enormous white world drifting through the void of space. As soon as he attempts to take his first step, his body collapses to one knee, struggling just to remain upright. Within the ruins of this fallen star, the gravitational force is 10 times heavier than that of Earth, and Chen feels the immense weight pressing deep into his bones. The entrance to the tower behind him fades away completely. He quickly figures out that the only way to reopen the exit is by defeating the boss. Before any deadly creatures have the chance to strike, he must rapidly adjust to the environment and push past its limits. Yet a phantom lion roaming nearby in search of prey clearly has no intention of giving him that opportunity. With no alternatives left, Chen immediately switches to his lightning class. The lion leaps directly toward him, but he barely slips aside and thrusts his blade sharply into the creature's shoulder. The monster bellows in anger, though the blow accomplishes little because it fails to hit anything vital. He soon notices that his strikes are just as slow and inaccurate as his current attempts to move under this crushing gravity. The phantom lion effortlessly forces him onto the ground and tries to chomp into him like a taco, demonstrating how perfectly these creatures have adapted to such extreme conditions. He allows the beast to chew on his arm for a brief moment before swiftly shifting his class to the Abyssal Fiend. The transformation immediately grants him a new type of stat enhancement. By sacrificing a portion of his speed, he receives a major boost in strength and endurance, traits that are essential in close-quarters combat like this. The shift in class slams the aggressive beast down and instantly turns the battle in his favor. Rakshasa's power to control gravity becomes incredibly valuable. On a world where gravity reaches 10 Gs, a threefold amplification strikes with terrifying impact. At that moment, the lion howls in rage, yet Chen shows no hesitation as he crushes the phantom lion straight into the planet's surface. Once the fight ends, he collapses flat on the ground, trying to recover his breath. Gluttony then startles him by announcing a well-earned level increase. It is also revealed that each class carries its own star rating. The amount of stars represents how drastically a character's stats shift when adopting that class. Purgatory Rakshasa possesses the greatest number of stars among all the classes currently available to him. Even with that benefit, he had just struggled desperately to survive against a mere B-rank Phantom Lion while using it. He realizes he still has a very long path ahead before reaching the class's true triple S rank potential. Soon after, irritation sets in when Gluttony does not even present the option for him to devour the defeated creature. This confirms the monster was not the boss of the floor, since an exit should appear only after the real boss is defeated. At that moment, a gigantic door slowly opens behind him. Dozens of shining eyes stare out from the darkness within. The truth crashes into him like a speeding truck. The struggle required to defeat a single phantom lion is insignificant compared with what awaits him now. An overwhelming swarm of B-rank monsters floods through the doorway, slashing and tearing at him from every direction. Only then does he truly grasp the warning Rakshasa once gave him. The demon had told him that merciless beasts dwell within the tower, and that his journey would be filled with endless torment and suffering. Yet the demon also instructed him to endure everything, to adapt and to continue growing stronger. Not long after, Chen suddenly jolts awake from sleep, feeling as though he has barely escaped the most horrific nightmare imaginable. Everyone else in the room remains fast asleep, completely unaware that he had just endured the agony of monsters ripping his flesh apart. At last, our hero understands that the Purgatory Void Tower is not some easy shortcut for rapid leveling. He is merely standing at the beginning of an exhausting, brutal, and painful road ahead. Several weeks go by until the day of the Academy's graduation examination finally arrives. Numerous distinguished guests attend in order to observe the new generation of promising students. New rules are also revealed regarding team formation, requiring that every group include at least one student ranked at high E level. The time for forming parties begins, and it is announced that all students are now able to see one another's ranks. This makes it simple for everyone to decide who they want to recruit into their teams. The students line up according to rank from highest to lowest, yet Ma Long quickly notices something unusual. Chen himself is baffled when he sees his name placed all the way at the very bottom of the list. Every gaze turns toward him as the others question how someone who nearly died during awakening could possibly hold the lowest position in the class. The envious students immediately begin mocking him, convinced that his previous high ranking must have been a mistake in the evaluation. Even so, none of them can deny that his power is genuine, and placing him on their team would surely raise their final scores. Council President Gong Ting stays silent while whispers spread about the idiot who must now regret refusing the president's generous offer. The mastermind behind this entire setup is none other than his own uncle, Gong Yuan. That scoundrel believed that once everyone saw Chen placed at the very bottom of the rankings, no one would be willing to invite him into their group. His malicious scheme was incredibly straightforward. If Chen fails to even qualify, then he will never have the opportunity to challenge the president's team. Rewinding to only a few hours earlier, nearly the entire class desperately pleads with President Gong Ting for a chance to join his squad. They flatter him shamelessly, yet Gong Tong cuts them off and announces that their group can accept only one additional member. Returning to the present moment, every other student manages to assemble a team, leaving only the weakest dormitory without one. Ma Long explains that they approached everyone they could, but every student turned them down. With merely 4 members at the moment, they are unable to participate in the graduation examination. He then angrily points out how suspicious it is that Chen's score suddenly dropped to the lowest position, making him appear unqualified to even compete. Because the rules require each group to include at least one high E-rank student, it almost seems as though their team was deliberately singled out. The graduation exam represents the sole opportunity for students to demonstrate their abilities and attract attention from top guilds. During the final trial, the number of team members determines how many monsters the group must face, meaning larger teams gain no advantage. For that reason, nobody wants to associate with weaker students, since they would simply become an additional burden. To make matters even worse, the 3 students with the lowest rankings all belong to the same dormitory, leaving them completely cut off from the rest. At that moment, a student calls out to Shang Zhu, reminding him that their group lacks only one more member. The boy attempts to manipulate him, suggesting that surely he does not intend to fail the graduation exam by sticking with his weak roommates. Chen realizes that if the situation continues like this, there is a strong chance their group will be excluded and never even get the chance to compete. Even so, the dorm leader firmly declines their proposal, declaring that he will never desert his roommates. His response angers the other group, who storm away, though he still warns them not to underestimate people so easily. After checking the roster, Ma Long announces that almost every student has already finalized their teams. Their group needs only one more member, yet not a single person is willing to join them. At the same time, Chen looks toward the director and notices that the man shares the same surname as the student council president. Witnessing such dirty tactics, Chen begins to suspect that Gong Yuan truly sees him as a significant threat. Refusing to give up, he proclaims that he will absolutely participate in the tournament and activates his lightning ability. Since the others are being so openly hostile, he decides there is no reason for him to restrain himself any longer. Gathering aura like a seasoned fighter, he steps forward while the officials supervising the event are startled by this sudden surge of power. Even his own dorm mates begin questioning what exactly is happening. Our hero remembers that every Awakener Academy follows a particular tradition. To encourage rivalry and improvement, students are allowed to challenge anyone at any moment. Although it might appear like simple bragging, it actually serves as a method for displaying strength and earning recognition. In circumstances like this, many individuals would simply refuse the challenge from the start. However, Chen understands that the student council president will not retreat from a confrontation. Therefore, as long as he defeats the blonde boy, everyone will suddenly want him on their team. Right then, a girl appears in the doorway and calls out to Chen, asking whether he still needs another teammate. She continues by saying that she also wishes to participate in this year's graduation examination. The vice president further mentions that she already reached D rank back in middle school, promising that she will not disappoint him. His dorm mates immediately lose their composure, wondering how he managed to gain the support of such a stunning girl. Both Gong Chong and Gong Ting stare in confusion, unable to understand what is happening, while the director nearly spits out his drink in shock. The students begin whispering among themselves, questioning why an exchange student would want to join the lowest-ranked team in the exam. Almost nobody truly knows her identity, though rumors claim she comes from the Saint Kingdom. The director nearly explodes with anger and informs her that exchange students are not permitted to take part in the school's graduation exam. He continues by pointing out that Ling has never taken any ranking tests at this academy. Without proving her rank, allowing her to participate would violate every established rule. Suddenly, the principal appears and confirms that the director's statement is correct. Gong nearly suffers a heart attack the moment he notices the elderly man. However, the principal then calmly asks Ling why she wishes to join the exam when she will only remain at the academy for a short period. Meanwhile, Chen feels stunned and wonders how the principal managed to appear out of nowhere despite being a warrior class. The old man explains that letting her participate would be unfair to the other students, and she simply nods in agreement. Chen begins sweating when he realizes he cannot even sense what rank either of these two people possess. The director finally gathers enough courage to speak again, backing up the principal and insisting that a school cannot operate without rules. The principal then changes his tone and explains that the true goal of this academy is to provide awakeners with a place to learn and grow so they can accomplish great things in life. Although the graduation exam is a long-standing tradition, it also represents one of the most important moments in a student's entire life. He asks how the academy plans to compensate a student who loses their chance to participate because of a sudden change in the rules. The director begins sweating profusely, wondering if his scheme has finally been uncovered. He starts to suspect that the principal might be orchestrating all of this solely for the sake of that boy. Recognizing that continuing the argument will only create more trouble, he ultimately decides to yield. He reassures himself that since the most powerful students have already united in a single team, they should still win the evaluation without difficulty. The man bows respectfully to the principal and apologizes, admitting that they failed to consider how the current system might deny certain students the opportunity to improve themselves. The director then proclaims that even teams with lower rankings or fewer than 5 members will now be allowed to participate in the tournament so that the process remains fair. The 4 dorm mates finally establish their team and celebrate the fact that they are now eligible to enter the graduation exam. Seated at the back, the principal remarks to Ling that she appears unusually interested in that boy. On one side of the upcoming trial, the student council president commands the squad composed of the strongest students. On the opposite side, Chen leads the trio considered the weakest participants. This situation leaves the old man extremely curious about which cave each group will choose, and how many points they will ultimately earn. The official then declares that all team captains may now select which devil's cave they intend to enter. Suddenly, his tablet emits a notification, surprising him because one captain has already made a selection. Everyone begins panicking when they discover which cave Chen has picked. His dorm mates also become frantic, urging him to change his choice immediately and asking whether he truly understands what he has just done. Despite their panic, Chen remains silent, his eyes still fixed on the screen. During the graduation exam, teams enter a devil's cave where they accumulate points by defeating monsters. Additional points are awarded for defeating monster lords and for completing the dungeon quickly, while the dungeon's difficulty multiplies the final score. An F-rank dungeon can provide up to 75 points, while an E-rank dungeon offers a maximum reward of 100 points. The team that finishes with the highest score will receive an invitation from the Imperial Guild, and the best individual performer will earn a prize of 1 million yuan. Back in the selection room, the students discussed that the highest score ever recorded was 90 points, achieved by the current leader of the Imperial Guild. Even conquering an E-rank dungeon generally requires at least 3 dependable D-rank fighters on the team. This year, Gongting's group might actually have a chance to surpass that long-standing record. The display then produces another alert, announcing that someone has already chosen a devil's cave. The official is stunned when he realizes that the person who made the selection is Chen. No one in history has ever cleared a D-rank dungeon, and the room fills with speculation that this must be some kind of error. Ma Long asks Chen whether he hit his head somewhere, while the dorm leader completely loses his composure at what he is witnessing. The studious student attempts to reason with Chen, but Chen explains that he carefully thought this decision through for a very long time. The system then sends another notification as the student council president also selects the D-rank cave. Gongting's teammates immediately support their leader's decision, which secures their qualification for the exam. The entire classroom erupts in chaos at the announcement while their group tries to appear calm and unaffected. The blonde gothic girl mocks Chen, accusing him of pretending to be tough just to attract attention. The bald student adds that Chen's weak teammates would never accept such a reckless decision, and predicts that their team will fall apart. Ma Long studies Chen's expression closely and realizes that his friend is completely serious. He begins wondering when Chen became so powerful and how drastically he has changed. After reaching his decision, the nerd presses the confirmation button and chooses to place his trust in his friend. Yo also taps the green button for the same cave because he feels he has nothing left to lose. The dorm leader becomes irritated that the two of them decided before he did, and he presses the button as well. With that action, the system officially registers their team as qualified for the exam. Looking toward his dorm mates, Chen apologizes and admits that he selected this dungeon because he wants to become the highest scoring participant. He acknowledges that he is dragging them into his personal ambition but promises that they will reach the top together. Upon hearing this declaration, the president suddenly rises to his feet and proclaims that the top position belongs to him alone. Chen turns around and faces him directly. Gongting releases a powerful and intimidating aura, declaring that only one person in the entire academy can claim the title of the strongest student. Watching from the back, Ling feels surprised because she has never seen him display such intense emotions before. The rivalry between the two of them has now become completely visible to everyone. The principal feels pleased to see the students acting so boldly, yet Ling grows uneasy because Chen chose a D-rank cave that even a C-rank fighter could not clear alone. Although a D-rank cave could grant 150 points, the level of difficulty is overwhelmingly high. On top of that, his teammates are also poorly matched for such a challenge. The principal points out that only about a month remains, which is far too little time for them to improve enough to handle it. Even so, he still chooses to remain hopeful. The narrative then jumps ahead 2 weeks to the training field, where everyone is lying on the ground completely drained. Ma Long asks why they are being forced into physical conditioning while the rest of the students are practicing with simulation training. Chen has been pushing them through a variety of intense workouts, leaving them irritated and worn out. Our hero explains that simulated training provides almost no real benefit. When someone steps into a devil's cave for the first time, their mind often goes blank, and only their instincts can keep them alive. This entire training routine is meant to strengthen their bodies so they can move more quickly and react more effectively. The most effective practice would be entering an actual dungeon to gain real combat experience. Unfortunately, ordinary people like them can only dream of such opportunities. Only privileged elites are granted access to those chances, and they were never average individuals to begin with. Even then, those elites work tirelessly to ensure that commoners never rise to their level, allowing them to maintain their dominance. They possess resources that ordinary people spend their entire lives trying to obtain. The dorm leader then asks what regular people are supposed to do in a situation like that. Chen reveals his strategy, explaining that if they manage to enter the Imperial Guild, they could eventually change the entire system. The graduation exam represents the only real opportunity to surpass the elite class. Because of that dream, Chen vows to do everything in his power to keep the promise he made, declaring that they will definitely win. With only half a month remaining before the graduation exam, our hero spends every night grinding inside the Void Tower. Taking down the Phantom Lions is far from easy, yet he refuses to give up no matter how brutally they toss him around. 5 days before the exam, his roommates are training with all the determination they can muster. Chen, however, has already reached an entirely different level. His extreme training routine makes even the Hashira training arc seem like a light warm-up. With only 2 days remaining, his rival is clearly training just as seriously. However, Chen's growth is happening at an even faster pace. By now, he can confidently stand his ground against an entire pride of lions under gravity strong enough to crush bones. With blood running down his face, he has never appeared more ready to claim victory. On the day of the exam, a small drone floats alongside the participants, serving as their guide. The boys arrive wearing matching outfits, looking impressively sharp. As soon as every participant equips their wristband, the examination officially begins. Meanwhile, the academy's principal warmly welcomes Gong Lin. The sharp-featured man is the father of President Gong Ting and one of the founding members of the Imperial Guild. The students cannot stop staring when they see the co-leader of the Imperial Guild, gawking at him as if he were some rare creature in a zoo. Their curiosity grows even stronger when they watch the guild's co-founder and the principal greet a sleek white limousine. A red-haired gentleman named Carl Cavendish calmly steps out of the vehicle. The students immediately lose their composure because anyone would recognize the vice-chairman of the World Guild Alliance. Someone with his level of influence would almost never appear anywhere near a place like this. Inside a VIP lounge, the director informs the distinguished guests that a total of 23 teams have chosen F-rank demon layers. Some groups selected E-grade layers, while only 2 teams boldly opted for D-rank layers. The Alliance Secretary Cred looks genuinely astonished that students would make such a reckless choice. Normally, even a D-rank party would prepare carefully before attempting a D-grade layer. She questions whether the Academy has truly taken the students' safety into account. Hearing her concern, the director calmly explains that the students clearly understand the risks they accepted. He had already warned them that awakeners with no real battle experience often struggle even against F-rank monsters. However, the greatest danger comes from the layer's boss, whose power surpasses the weaker monsters by several levels. Many teams end up failing at the final stage because they cannot defeat the boss creature. However, the situation becomes entirely different inside E-rank layers. Even the weakest monsters there possess strength comparable to an F-rank boss. That brutal lesson is something students usually discover through painful experience. The Alliance Secretary then asks whether there is any reliable protection if things suddenly become dangerous. The director assures her that the Academy values its most promising students very highly. To guarantee their safety, a warrior from the Imperial Guild stands guard outside every lair, ready to intervene if necessary. In addition, the wristbands worn by the students can instantly teleport them out if they surrender or if their lives are in real danger. Even after hearing that explanation, the woman still doubts that the Academy truly has students capable of challenging a D-rank layer. She quietly wonders how long those teams can realistically survive inside. The director, however, feels certain that those troublesome little E-rank students will likely run out crying before long. The scene then shifts to the D-rank dungeon filled with enormous trees covered in thick layers of ice. Chen's roommates are clearly terrified. Anyone would feel the same after seeing the nightmare-like creatures that resemble a strange mix between bats and monkeys. He quickly warns his teammates that those monsters dive toward their prey in the blink of an eye. Therefore, they need to stay extremely alert. Suddenly, a swarm of ghost monkey bats dives straight toward them. Amazingly, all the boys somehow manage to clumsily dodge the creature's lightning-fast attacks. While they are still excited about having avoided the strike of a D-rank creature, something even more unbelievable grabs their attention. Our hero stands there composed, holding a sword made of lightning, with the lifeless bodies of monsters already scattered at his feet. He instructs his teammates to concentrate on protecting themselves first since they are not yet strong enough. telling them to leave the rest to him. At that moment, another ghost monkey bat shoots toward them at supersonic speed, yet they barely dodge the attack at the very last instant. Shengzhou suddenly realizes that Chen had been forcing them to train their reflexes and burst speed specifically so they could survive against demons like these. Zhou clenches his teeth, remembering how he had proudly called himself the dorm king all this time. Yet now that so-called king has no choice but to depend on his random roommate. Meanwhile, Chen effortlessly eliminates the remaining ghost monkey bats. They rush at him one after another, but the absolute Chad cuts them down before they can even realize they have been disconnected from the server. The dorm leader mutters to himself that he had always heard from Ma Long that Chen was powerful, but this is the first time he has seen it with his own eyes. To him, Chen no longer resembles an ordinary graduating student, but rather a battle-hardened warrior. As the massacre continues, the former dorm king feels a hint of jealousy creeping in as Chen's reputation grows. Suddenly, another monster appears behind the group, and he barely manages to block its attack. He grabs the creature's leg with his flaming hands and shouts toward his teammates. He yells for them to stop behaving like useless baggage and pull themselves together. Chen is not the only one whose graduation is at stake. The others stare at him, stunned by this sudden display of determination. Motivated by the dorm king's stubborn resolve, Shangzu casts his flora chant called Vine Lock and successfully entangles the monkey bat. However, to his shock, the monster tears free almost instantly, and even kicks Shangzu during its escape. Ma Long then casts his cloud chant Frostbite Breeze, which only manages to slow the creature slightly. Realizing that their individual attacks are not enough, they decide to combine their efforts. Working together, they manage to restrain the monster for a brief moment, and shout for the Dorm King to take advantage of the opening. He charges up a nuclear burst flame bullet and fires it directly at the creature, yet the blast leaves little more than a few singed hairs. He launches several more flame bullets toward the demon, but none of them are able to bring it down. Shangzu and Ma Long are already approaching their limits. The dorm leader realizes that he can no longer afford to hold anything back. Gathering all his strength, he unleashes a converged burst flame bullet straight at the monster, causing a massive explosion. When the smoke finally clears, nothing remains except a charred skeleton. The drone announces that they have successfully defeated a D-class ghost monkey bat. All three of them collapse onto the ground, completely exhausted. They are overjoyed that they managed to defeat a D-class monster entirely on their own. Chen walks over with a hint of surprise, and they immediately ask whether he witnessed their victory. The creature leaves behind a single finger bone as loot, and Shangzhou casually boasts that defeating it was easy. Chen congratulates them anyway, and shortly afterward the drone declares that every mob inside the Devil's Cave has been eliminated. Watching the live feed, Director Gong nearly loses his mind after seeing those so-called trash students with no real combat experience defeat a D-level threat far beyond their supposed abilities. The rest of the staff deliberately remains silent. Meanwhile, Vice Chairman Cavendish's assistant calmly compliments Chen for his remarkable performance. He quietly thinks to himself that Chen's aura strongly reminds him of an old friend. The vice chairman mentions Chen's name and mentally notes it for later, which immediately puts President Gong Ting's father and the director on edge. The director quickly redirects everyone's attention to the student council team inside the other D-rank cave in order to avoid further focus on Chen. He points out that the group has already reached the middle section, and the chairman's assistant praises their teamwork, comparing it to the coordination of a professional guild raid squad. This comment amuses Chairman Carl, who remarks that this year's graduating class appears far more impressive than previous ones. Director Gong quietly mutters that the real fight has only just begun, and that the true spectacle has yet to reveal itself to everyone present. Back inside the D-rank Toxic Vine Cavern, the president's team is suddenly attacked by miasma poison mushroom monsters emerging from every direction. A girl plucks the strings of her guitar and releases an elegy of decay, while a star mage connects the mushrooms together using his star attraction ability to prepare a coordinated strike. He then calls for their captain, and the president charges forward with his sword, ready to finish the attack with style. With one rapid slash, the mushroom creatures explode as the president executes his blazing sky sever with flawless accuracy. His teammates remark that the monsters appearing in this school evaluation are identical to the ones they previously faced during training sessions. Because they already know these enemies well, the group handles the encounter with ease and without any real pressure. They had long assumed that the graduation assessment would be carefully arranged by the academy beforehand, since strong institutional backing ensures a far easier future. With that confidence, they begin celebrating ahead of time, fully convinced that claiming the championship this year will be effortless. The scene then shifts back to the deepest level of the Cloud Forest. The boys are stunned that they actually managed to survive this long and reach the Lair Lord. In the center of a frozen wasteland, they spot a ghost ape calmly feasting on its meal. The dorm leader instantly begins to sweat as he imagines the monster's terrifying strength. A single strike from that creature would probably send him straight to the afterlife. As if on cue, the beast slowly fixes its gaze on the weakest member of the group. Ma Long panics, and that single scream is enough to provoke the monster. The enormous ape suddenly leaps toward them with terrifying force. The boys run for their lives as if their survival truly depends on it. Meanwhile, Chen rushes forward without a moment of hesitation. He leaps straight toward the creature's massive face with a brutal kick, then follows up with a relentless chain of blows that sends its body flying around like a rag doll. He finishes the battle by tearing it apart, leaving behind chunks of shredded monkey flesh. This savage display leaves his teammates staring in stunned amazement. Even so, Chen feels annoyed that defeating D-rank monsters no longer provides worthwhile experience. The loot they obtain is equally disappointing. Suddenly he hears his teammates shouting with excitement after discovering giant mana stones. Apparently the ghost ape had been storing them inside the hollow trunk of a tree. His friends practically drool over the unexpected treasure and eagerly reach out to grab the shining crystals. Chen shouts a warning, but he reacts a moment too late. The instant their hands touch the mana stones, a blinding burst of light explodes outward. Within seconds, the entire area becomes sealed in thick ice. Shangzhu, Malong, and even the drones are completely frozen by the Arctic blast. Back in the VIP room, the live broadcast suddenly cuts out. The shady director smirks, almost as if he had been expecting this outcome all along. He anticipated that high-rank monsters would set traps like this, and it was only a matter of time before Chen and his inexperienced team fell into one. Vice Chairman Cavendish looks displeased, clearly worried about the students' safety. The director pretends to regret Chen's failure, and claims that they now have no choice but to extract the team immediately. The principal disagrees with that decision. He argues that they are not in immediate danger because the wristbands would activate if the students' vital signs became unstable, and none of them have chosen to surrender. He believes that only the participants themselves should decide when to give up. Back inside the dungeon, Malong trembles under the biting cold. Among all the members of the party, he is the only one who avoided being frozen thanks to his class's natural resistance to ice. At that moment, he hears a chilling laugh and notices a skeletal ice monster staring directly into his soul without mercy. He recognizes it as the ruler of this lair and remembers seeing it mentioned in the monster compendium before. He quickly recalls that it is actually a cloud mage capable of controlling both defensive and offensive abilities with ease. While it manipulates ice and snow effortlessly, he also remembers that this cruel creature, which delights in slowly torturing its prey, is known as the Bone King of Remains. He realizes that the ice bomb was merely a carefully prepared trap, so he immediately turns around and runs without hesitation in an attempt to save himself. Malong understands perfectly well that he cannot possibly face an S-class lord monster like this alone under any circumstances. He rushes toward Chen in an attempt to free him, but an icy attack pierces his leg before he can reach him. The Bone King laughs at his suffering while his bracelet sends out a warning that his leg has been completely impaled. The device offers him the option to abandon the exam, yet Malong refuses to give up hope and still attempts to thaw Chen before their final advantage disappears. At that moment, another shard of ice shoots through his arm, preventing him from freeing Chen despite his desperate effort. The Bone King takes pleasure in Malong's agony as it watches him endure unbearable pain while his bracelet issues another warning about severe injury. It detects that his arm has also been pierced and notes that his heart rate has risen to a dangerously high level, then once again offers him the option to withdraw from the exam, but instead the boy slips into a memory from the past. He remembers that throughout his life he always ran away from problems the moment difficulty appeared, and that habit caused him to fall behind every single time. He recalls how people ignored him, mocked him, and bullied him endlessly. Yet he and his friends have already invested far too much effort to reach this point. Now he sees this moment as the final chance to change their destiny, so he gathers the last of his strength, rises to his feet, and finally manages to free Chen. He stands firm as the Bone King launches a relentless barrage of icicles straight at him. Just as the deadly attack is about to strike, he releases a furious roar and Chen opens his eyes at that exact instant. The frozen block explodes into fragments as Chen bursts forward, swiftly carrying Malong away from danger in a single motion. This unexpected maneuver leaves the Bone King momentarily stunned. At the same time, Malong quickly realizes that Chen ultimately freed himself from the icy prison by his own power. The warrior thanks Malong for helping him earlier, and immediately asks about his condition with obvious concern. Malong responds that the bleeding has stopped for now, so he should survive without any further complications, at least temporarily. He explains that the monster they are facing is a cloud-type C-rank lord known as the Bone King, and warns that it is extremely dangerous in battle. He adds that they must avoid being frozen again at all costs if they want even the smallest chance to survive this encounter. They turn back just in time to see the Bone King gathering a huge cluster of ice shards, which quickly merge into a gigantic glacier attack preparing to fire. Malong is horrified as he realizes the monster is about to unleash a massive ice bomb directly at them. In the next moment, the frozen blast crashes down and engulfs everything in a blinding wave of white. The monster begins laughing, but the sound abruptly stops when it notices that both of them are still standing alive after the devastating strike. Chen switches his class to the Doomflame King and activates a Cloud Warrior Frost Body, granting him complete immunity to cold damage. This transformation also increases all of his resistance stats in freezing environments, turning the battlefield itself into his advantage. The Bone King releases a horrified screech while even Malong feels confused as he watches his friend who was supposed to be a vault assassin transform into a cloud-type warrior instead. He begins to wonder if Chen might be one of those rare prodigies capable of awakening two separate classes without limitation. Chen simply apologizes for misjudging the situation earlier and admits that his mistake dragged his friends into unnecessary danger. Then he changes class once again, transforming into an abyssal fiend. He draws his Purgatory Warrior sword and faces the Bone King with clear intent to finish the battle immediately. His best friend's jaw drops in complete disbelief at the sight. Normally, every Awakener is born with only a single class they can specialize in. However, on extremely rare occasions, someone might possess two classes at the same time, Such dual-class awakeners are so uncommon that their numbers could be counted on one hand. Because of this rarity, they are treated like priceless treasures that every major guild desperately wants to recruit. Yet that fact alone is not what truly shocks him. As he watches closely, he realizes that Chen is not using one or two classes, but three entirely different ones. On top of that, each of those classes is exceptionally powerful. In his abyssal fiend form, Chen's stats skyrocket at an unbelievable rate. His overwhelming physical strength launches him forward like a rocket blasting off. He charges toward the boss with explosive speed, and the creature's arrogant grin disappears under the weight of Chen's killing aura. With one clean strike, he slices the bony monster apart like butter, leveling up to 17 and obtaining a rare piece of loot. As he stares at the shattered remains of the skeleton, his friend is still stunned that Chen just defeated a C-rank lair lord with a single attack. Chen casually reminds him that the others are still trapped inside the ice. Ma Long suddenly has a strange realization that he completely forgot about the rest of their teammates during the entire boss battle. He immediately runs off to thaw them out before they end up turning into frozen statues. After he leaves, Chen notices that he now has the option to devour the Frost Lich King. Since no one is around to witness it, he quickly absorbs the defeated Lair Lord and acquires the Cloud Mage class. Thanks to the boss's Arctic Nova blinding every drone in the area, no one will discover his hidden ability. Then, without warning, he receives yet another surprising notification. His Lightning Assassin class also levels up, allowing him to add a star to enhance one of his stats. The scene then shifts to the D-rank lair known as Gloomvine Grotto, where the council president's team is being completely overwhelmed. No matter how fiercely they attack, the D-rank boss proves far too durable for these inexperienced awakeners. The mage restraining the monster's movements with chains is already close to collapse, while the lightning archer's arrows feel more like a gentle massage than actual damage to the lair lord. They are tossed around like cheap action figures inside a toy box. The humiliation makes them start wondering whether all those combat simulations were completely useless. They have never faced an opponent anywhere near this level of power before. The mage quickly realizes that the president is their only real chance of defeating the boss. Far in the back line, the president strikes a dramatic stance. He begins charging his ultimate skill while receiving buffs from the supporting mages. Once he finally gathers enough power, he launches himself toward the boss with his blazing sword. The blade pierces straight through its core and erupts into a storm of flames that melts the creature from the inside out. His teammates burst into cheers, celebrating what they believe is the birth of a legend whose name will someday be written into history. The drone announces that their group has successfully cleared a D-grade layer in a little over 30 minutes. Filled with excitement, his entire party becomes convinced they have secured first place. In their minds, no other team could possibly surpass that completion time. They eagerly leave the lair, expecting to see their names proudly displayed at the very top of the leaderboard. Soon afterward, they pass through corridors crowded with students who had already surrendered and teleported out early. Most of those students look completely shaken, still haunted by the demons they encountered for the first time. One of the president's lackeys happens to notice Chen and his group sitting quietly off to the side. A quick glance at the tired state of his teammates makes the situation seem obvious to him. They must have failed immediately after entering the dungeon. The lackey walks over with a smug expression, mocking Chen and claiming that he must have collapsed halfway through despite his earlier arrogance. The loyal follower continues running his mouth, but his master silences him when he notices the vice chairman of the alliance approaching. The refined gentleman slowly applauds while congratulating the students for their impressive performance. As he approaches, the president maintains a composed expression, while his subordinates nearly tremble with excitement at standing before one of the most powerful men in the world. President Gongting confidently reaches out his hand for a handshake. However, Mr. Cavendish completely ignores the gesture and walks straight past him without even acknowledging it. Faced with such blatant humiliation, the president feels his pride crack deep inside. To make matters even worse, the vice chairman loudly calls Chen a true legend. He places a hand on Chen's shoulder and announces for everyone nearby to hear that Chen cleared a D-rank dungeon in only 20 minutes. Not even professional teams from his own guild have ever accomplished such a feat. Both the council president and his followers fall completely silent. They cannot comprehend how 4 unknown nobodies from the bottom of the rankings managed to outperform their fully assembled 10-person squad and even conquer a D-rank lair. Meanwhile, Chen does not even react. Being praised by the most powerful man in the country means absolutely nothing to him. At the same time, he cannot help wondering why someone with such influence personally came to this academy. In any case, Carl Cavendish calmly remarks that he will remember Chen's name well. He then turns toward Gong Lin, the man who originally invited him here. The vice chairman casually comments that his son is talented as well, though the remark sounds more like a half-hearted compliment. That statement leaves both father and son feeling deeply bitter. With that said, the vice chairman announces that he should be leaving now. The director quickly steps in to smooth over the situation. He announces the final results, revealing that the 2 leading teams have ended with identical scores. Because of this tie, both teams will receive official invitations to join the Imperial Guild. That announcement sounds like heavenly music to Chen's roommates, since his incredible carry has basically secured their futures. President Gongting's followers celebrate as well. However, the president himself is far from satisfied with this result. Then the director adds that the team captains will receive management positions within the guild for their leadership, and the $1 million reward will be split evenly between them. Upon hearing this, both team leaders visibly show surprise. Chen quietly worries that $500,000 will not be enough to pay off his debt. He still needs to find another way to earn the remaining money and keep the promise he made to the Mythil Exchange Guild. However, that concern may become irrelevant because President Gong Ting openly refuses to accept a tie. He boldly declares that a one-on-one duel will decide who the true winner is. There can only be a single champion. This sudden challenge shocks everyone present, drawing the attention of both the director and even the vice chairman. Worried by his nephew's reckless action, the director urgently tries to convince him to accept the current result instead. The old man explains that a tie is already the best possible outcome, especially after the humiliation he suffered earlier. He remains calm, assuming that Chen will refuse such a pointless duel. Yet Chen immediately accepts the challenge on the condition that the winner receives the entire $1 million prize. That dramatic twist is shocking enough to make the vice chairman stop and cancel his departure. With the terms decided, Chen steps forward to confront him directly, ready to settle everything once and for all. If you made it this far, leave a like and comment. Gluttony MC. I'll leave some recommendations for other videos on the channel at the end of the video.